My name is Theon Johnson III, and I have a story of racial profiling. I struggle to remember the finer details of this story, and I imagine that may speak to the ways in which this story has affected me subconsciously, subversively. I was in Jackson, Mississippi, being interviewed by a young white woman. She was probably within 5 years my senior, so early 30s. And across the course of our interview, a few questions were asked, around my name, my hometown, how many siblings I had, questions about my family, etc., all of which were fair. As she found out the hometown from which I arise, from which I've been grown up in, as she learned about my family, a few questions that I could not begin to expect to be asked were actually offered. So a question about, so how many of your family members are in prison came up, to which I was shocked, didn't know where this came from. Responded, well, none. And there was shock, total shock on her end. Really? None of your folks are in prison? Oh, wow, okay. Another question which floored me came up. So how many children do you have? And I thought, excuse me? None. Upon responding, she was completely shocked. I mean, really? You don't have any children? I thought, no, I don't have any children. And just, well, how did that happen? I thought it was pretty easy to know how it didn't happen. However, questions along this line about education, about prison, about children, about socioeconomic status, these types of questions were leading, and I think were offered in a sense that reflected the image of how she understood black men in America to live, to interface with their community, how they were to be in this society. And I must say that as I heard these questions, that I shut down, and which is why even now the finer details of the story escape me. But I know that it made me feel upset. I was shocked, and I was very much aware of the enormous burden that I felt to keep my nose clean, to walk, if you will, a very thin line for the sake of all black men in America, in order to prove that, hey, we are not all baby daddies who've been to jail, who have a long prison rap, but that indeed we are individuals, that we are free agents, and that we have a human dignity that is innate and should not be lumped into a category with all people, with just one big group of folks.
Thank you. It's a very powerful story. And yeah, do you have anything other thoughts about your experience you'd like to share with us?
I think the experience reminded me that the challenge of those questions is not just a challenge found in Jackson, Mississippi, but the subversive racism that is in Jackson, Mississippi is also in San Francisco, California, and in Manhattan, New York, and in Atlanta, Georgia, and in Seattle, Washington. Because as long as generalizations are made about people, as long as stereotypes are lifted about people, as long as prejudice is a reality in our human conditioning, we must always work to debunk our tendencies towards buttressing the stereotypes, the prejudices, and the injustices that are associated with it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.